closed in their studio for so many days, concentrating in painting. But this perception of time was a little bit distorted by the isolation and the impossibility to get out or to connect with other people. And I had some discussion with the artist. They said to me, okay, it is quite normal that I am secluded for some days and I lost the time, the flowing of time, because when I paint, I am concentrated. But I answered, this time is slightly different, because if in the normal in normal life, if you need a brush, you have the awareness that you can get out and buy the brush. This time, and this event and this situation is completely different, because now you are aware that you cannot get out, you don't find anybody in the street, or the brush shop is completely closed. And so the only possibility that you have in your communication towards the external world, or even toward relatives, parents, friends, and whoever, is through a machine, which is this machine that we are all together, that allowed us also to be together in this moment, but is a machine. Or the call, and I see Ria Carmi, for instance, who got my thousands telephone calls just to talk with someone. So the physicality completely lost, and our connections through a machine, a computer, or the telephone. So this was the idea, to start to collect all the possible sensation and emotions of the artists from all over the world. Obviously, we missed a lot of artists, but we had at the end 93 people joining us in this project, among also art historians, art critics, artists, and so on, who wanted to participate. At the end, we decided to collect everything in this book that you all know probably, and just because I wanted to freeze this situation and this moment in the history, and also for a legacy towards a future generation who can have a book to read about all these experience that nobody of us has ever done, because we didn't participate in Second World War, and so we were absolutely out from situational wars in general, like bombing or seclusion in the shelters to avoid the bombings. Like my mother answered, she said we went we had to run into the shelters to avoid the bombing, so I don't care about the virus. And she is 93, so there is the difference between us and that generation. So now the book is obviously, as you all know, the book has been produced very fast by Renato, because Renato made the layout and he made everything about the book. And so we obviously through Blurb, because Blurb is in San Francisco, a San Francisco-based company, Inter company, which is quite very, very good. And as you know, all the sales from the book and the incomes from the sales will be donated for charity to an institution that we are looking for all over the world, either Italian or American maybe, to help science research in the medical field, pharmaceutical or medical field, we'll see, or an hospital. We have to decide. We are asking a lot of people to help us also in this research. So now I know that you know the project, because I am seeing a lot of people who participate in the project, and I really thank you from the deep depth of my heart. And now I want to introduce you, obviously, Peter. Peter Frank.
Cynthia, if you don't mind, Cynthia, if you don't mind, just for a second, let me just give a general instruction. We have almost over 55 people joining us. And we want to go ahead. I just want to make sure that everybody understands about just basic things. First of all, is to be muted. And second of all, that a legal disclaimer about that this session is being recorded. So anybody who doesn't want to be recorded, please feel free to switch off your audio and video. And thank you very much. Without further ado, please, Cynthia, continue to introduce our esteemed panel.
We decided to create a panel discussion, but it is not strictly a panel discussion. Peter will give you his idea and the sensation about this participation. Peter Frank, I don't think Peter needs to be introduced, but anyway, Peter was the senior curator of a Riverside Museum. He is one of the most important art critics all over United States, and he is also well known in Europe. And he wrote for Huffington Post, LA Weekly, and wrote a lot of monographs, and was also the editor of Vision Art Quarterly many years ago. Anyway, I think that Peter, personally, we have a long relationship started in more than 10 years ago. We met each other, and I have never met in my life another person who has the culture and the knowledge about European art. Obviously, American art is it goes normally in a normal way, but European art, being an American, having studied at the Columbia University in New York, Peter is very, very competent in European art from the old times through the 1900s and actually the contemporary art. So Peter was and is one of the person that immediately said yes to my proposal. So I want to thank personally Peter, and I give you, Peter, I give you the words, and I mute myself.
Thank you. Can I be heard? Good.
Yes, you are good.
Thank you. And thank you, Cynthia, for that warm and encouraging introduction. And I, in turn, would like to introduce my fellow panelists. With a flick of the switch here. I'll introduce Todd first. Todd Williamson lives and works in Los Angeles. He has a BA from Belmont University in Nashville and has studied at Cal State and UCLA. Last year, Williamson's project, Processional, was chosen as one of 20 official collateral exhibitions at the 58th Biennale de Venezia, the 58th Venice Biennale. Processional was curated by Priscilla Fraser, director of the Max Center for Art and Architecture here in LA, and was supported by the Pollock Krasner Foundation, which also awarded Williamson the prestigious Prize for Creativity. Todd had originally won a Pollock Krasner Foundation Award grant back in 2010-11, and has also won the Best Foreign Artist in Blu Duemila Sport e Arte Italy, the Second Artsland International Abstract Showcase Award, and an Artistic Merit Award from Art 1307 Cultural Association in Naples. Williamson's work is currently on view at the MAC Museum in Zingen, Germany, with his solo show California Dreamin', An Uncertain Paradise, through this September, and is also participating in the Circle of Truth, a traveling group museum show. Upcoming shows include Stillness at the George Berge Gallery in New York this fall, a 3-person show at the Museum Villa Zeitz, and Color at the Sika Museum in Korea. Williamson is also an arts commissioner for the city of West Hollywood, where he oversees both temporary and permanent art projects for the city. Thank you, Todd. Yuri Boyko is a multidisciplinary artist born in Kiev, Ukraine, and who attended British Higher School of Art and Design in Moscow. His studio is located in Hollywood, yet, as he says, his ideas are influenced by a far wider world. His work has been shown in the US and Europe, and he is a recent recipient of the Art on the Outside Award for public art in the city of West Hollywood. He was selected for the short list of Artisti Premiati, that is top artist, at the Cinque Biennale di Arte Contemporanea in Genoa, and also an artist residency at the Center for Research and Creativity in Casamares in Barcelona. Boyko received a partial grant award for artist residency at Vermont Studio Center in Johnson, Vermont, and a quick grant award through the Creative Capacity Fund Center for Cultural Innovation here in Los Angeles. Thank you, Yuri. I'll start the conversation by reading the first paragraph of the contribution I made to the book on time. My contribution is titled Suspended Animation. And I write, the present situation is at once momentous and timeless, persistent and fleeting, very much about the passage of time and very much about transcending time altogether. Even as the headlines keep us riveted to the temporal flow of the outside world, our inside worlds stay inside, and we lose track of what day it is, what week it is, what month it is, what minute it is, and depending on how your windows are oriented, what hour it is. Artists like nothing better than to get in a working groove in their studio where they lose all track of time, not flowing through it, but floating above it. Now, everyone, artists and non-artists alike, has one foot in that condition and the other foot tapping around desperately for the daily treadmill. We look for a measure of time, but all we find is a measure of pulse. We have no idea when this circumstance will yield to what most of us consider normality, or for that matter, what normality will consist of on the other side of this tornado rotating at a glacial pace. So now I'd like to pass the baton, as it were, to my colleagues Todd and Yuri, and have them comment on both the concept as a whole and Cynthia's response and my response to it. Thank you. Todd, Yuri?
I found this a very interesting project because, during this time period, there are so many projects and they're all about COVID. Everything's COVID, COVID, COVID. And in this instance, this project was not specifically about the pandemic, it was about the isolation and how, as an artist, you respond to the isolation. So for me, that's what I found the most interesting about this. And as I read through the book and all the different quotes, it's interesting how all the 93 artists that are part of this project, everyone responded a little bit different, although there are similarities to everything. Everything, the responses generated are very personal to each artist. What do you think, Yuri? I'll pass it to you now.
Well, thank you, Todd. I think it's very much very individual approach for all the artists who are participating. And as you said, I'm also very glad that it wasn't specifically about this pandemic, this specific case, but rather taking this case, taking this specificity of our time and generalizing it through the experiences and through ideas. And so for me, it was more abstract approach to the time, what time basically can do to us, or what it can, how it can be represented. And it was quite a challenge, and that's why I felt that it would not be just visual material, but rather would be a narrative story, which would also guide the viewer or observer in this case. So I should rather say participant, to talk, to think, not in visual images, but also to plug in the awareness of the outside world. And so it's happened that everybody is very aware of this world at this moment. So to me, it was very specific, which was generalized on much more larger issues and ideas. Back to Frank. Peter?
Yeah, this sense of interior and exterior is also something that's profoundly shaping our new perceptions. But it's, at least I found that my awareness of time became far more elastic sooner than did my sense of space and even of interior and exterior. That even as I was able to follow the course of a day out my window, that I couldn't stay. It began to feel like like 3 o'clock was a different hour, 3 p.m. was a different hour in early April than it had been in early March. That things lasted longer or shorter than I thought they normally did. And I'm still not certain that, it takes a tea kettle to boil as long as it used to.
Yeah.
These interruptions in the flow of our sensibility are exactly what art is about. And this is why I think this project, by not focusing on the pandemic, but on focusing on its impact on individuals and thereby its impact on society, rather than the other way around, is so distinctive and so necessary. The news tells us if you go out, you have to wear a mask. Gloves are necessary or not necessary. People shouldn't gather, social distance, blah, blah, blah. All this regimenting of behavior. But inside, we're not concerned, at least only with behavior. We're concerned with how the world feels and whether the world is someplace or that creates reassurance. It still does not feel like it used to. And I think that is what the book and our contributions to it are all about.
For me, one of the things that made time go by was being in the studio, because I'm pretty regimented about when I work anyway, but with the isolation, I look forward to being in my studio from 9, I'm there usually from like 9 till 3 in the afternoon. And that part of my day, it goes by on a normal pace for me because I'm always in my studio at that time. And during this, it's helped the days to pass much quicker. And for me, I found it very inspirational because I've spent so much time at home that I have spent a great deal of time researching things and changing the ways that I'm practicing. So in some ways, I find this an amazing time to be alive, simply because we're living history. And so art is a statement about history always. It's history through the artist, but it's always about history. So what an amazing time to be able to create a statement. Hopefully we'll never get another time like this in our lifetimes.
I think that our idea came out from, I told you before, from our personal sensation. First of all, I think that all of us and the entire population of the world had to deal with fear, because obviously an unknown disease or an unknown virus that is attacking the entire population of the world at the same time is something that at the first sight is shocking. And it's shocking because of the terror or the fear of our health, of our physicity maybe, physical. So a disease is something that is always very shocking at the first sight. So first of all, we had to deal with this thing. Then suddenly and contemporary all over the world had to experience the isolation and confinement. Together with the fear, it could be something explosive in our minds and in our lives. So maybe I reacted to all this sort of sensation, and usually when I have a bad experience in my life, I run in art. So maybe it was my reaction, and also supported by Renato, and we said, okay, let's art respond to it, and we want to see how art can respond also to overcome this single sensation combined all together, the explosion. Instead of having a negative explosion, maybe art can suggest us a positive reaction, a positive explosion into something else. So this was the idea. I don't know if someone wants to intervene to tell us what was the experience and what is now, after 3 months almost, when our minds and our feelings are starting to slow down with the opening of so many countries to slightly go back to a normal life. What are the sensations that accompany us in the entire experience? I think it is very interesting also to talk about this.
You know, for me, I don't know that I have a clue what is going to be the new normal. Galleries are kind of all over the map right now, and everyone on the planet's trying to do everything online, which I don't actually think is going to. I think that it's going to be a partial solution, but I don't think it's going to be a real solution, because people want to see art and they want to be they want to experience the art, and it's difficult to do that online. You can learn a lot, and with a video, and you can truly understand an artist a great deal better, but you have to see paintings and artwork in person to really get a sense of what they are and what they're trying to say, I think.
Well, this has been a debate going on for the last several decades as artistic discourse and commerce has moved so heavily onto the internet. And I think the pandemic and again the sequestering that accompanies it, having forced so many more of us online in certain ways, such as a Zoom conversation, but also onto gallery websites and Artsy and ArtNet, things like that, and also relying more and more on three-dimensional projection and virtual reality, etc. All of this is our attention to these things and even our dependence on them will accelerate as a result of what we're going through now, because many more of us will become habituated to it, and we'll have found that it's not as frustrating, nor as it's not as frustrating as we thought it would be, and it's more informative and helpful than we anticipated. However, we still have the knowledge and the experience to know that a physical work of art seen online is effectively a reproduction. It's lit from behind. It's out of scale. It can't be touched or perceived for its material essence. And as we have for decades, even centuries, if we don't trust a reproduction in a magazine or a book to fully represent an artwork, how can we do that online? Sometimes I get concerned that younger people, artists and non-artists alike, having grown up with communication through the internet, it's not that they can't tell the difference between a reproduced and an actual artwork. It's that it doesn't matter to them. But I think, in discussions and viewing the artwork of younger artists, I find that fear of mine is generally unfounded, that they're as sensitive to the difference between the virtual and the actual as we are.
We have some questions coming in, and I'd like to encourage everybody as well to post those questions or just to raise your hand and talk to that. So the first question that we have is specifically came from Simcha Moya, and she asked, how did pandemic get expressed in your artwork? That's the first question. And the second, do you intend to show examples of your work during this panel discussion? So Todd, I think you can take first on that, and I'll add after that.
I think the pandemic allowed me time to myself. Last year was such a crazy year for me, and this year was set up to play off of everything that had happened in 2019 and to take advantage of that, and everything was stopped. I had 4 exhibitions that were scheduled between April and mid-May, and they were all canceled, and all, like the New York exhibition was supposed to open April 2nd. So we literally didn't cancel the exhibition until 2 weeks before. But for me, in my artwork, I think that I became very dependent upon no one but myself, because I didn't have anyone coming through the studio. I didn't have feedback. I only had me and then what I researched online and what I was finding questions that I already had that I was trying to find answers to. So for me, if you know my work, I always have those raised lines in my work, and they kind of disappeared during this, and the work went more to the people that I am inspired by, Clifford Still and these abstract expressionists from the late 40s and 50s from New York. And I've allowed myself just to paint for me, and I'm not painting for anybody else. I really want to see the work that I want to see. And for some reason, this has allowed me to do that. To the other part of the question, I don't know how to post anything on here. I can show you the piece behind me if you want. But other than that, that's about as close as I can get.
Yes, and to add up on from my perspective, it's pretty much the way how pandemic affected me wasn't primarily or directly through how it is depicted in my work. It was rather from a pragmatic sense where I got affected by it in a much larger way. The same as Todd had canceled the exhibition, the same situation happened to me where the exhibition was scheduled in Italy at a very prominent location, Zaha Hadid's railway station, and suddenly I had to redo that along with curator Cynthia Penna to be presented in online form. So did pandemic affect me? Yes, it did. Did it get reflected directly in my work? No, it didn't. But yet, there is the other thing which is very important is that it does give you again the same as Todd mentioned already. Primarily, the time spent is mostly in a studio. So whether it's a pandemic or whether it's not, you are still in your studio and you are by yourself and you are with yourself. But what it did kind of again from pragmatic standpoint is that suddenly it kind of gave a perspective to what you do. A perspective in a sense that you are very busy inside your world, and suddenly there is this global change. And I should say paradigm shift, because we're not going to be the same anymore. And that gives you a perspective. And that's how pandemic affected me. So it gives me from pragmatic standpoint, I had to scrambling with all this exhibition and shows scheduled for the spring and summer. And then from an emotional, creative self, it was just given a different perspective going forward and even during my time in the studio. So please, if anybody wants to add up on that, please go ahead. I'll...
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to talk from my personal experience. I'm no stranger to isolation. I spent time in shelters in Israel during the wars. Then I had my cancer and I had to be on my own because I couldn't be with people, no immune system and so forth. So I got this isolation. For me, it was much easier. First of all, I was not alone in this fight. The other fights, it's like, look like I have to fight something that only me. Here's, everybody has to deal with the same thing. And that's why I'm very optimistic, because previous experience showed me all over, or if, like for instance, after the earthquake here in Northridge, prices of houses were low, everybody left, blah, blah, blah. After a few years, everything is go back to normal, and more than that, they are building and building and building, and the same with the gas leak and the other. So my perspective about the whole thing is that I think that this opportunity to take time from life and to dig more into ourselves enable us to make, I think, more profound art, because we were not busy of the everyday schedule and rush here. We were forced to stay still, even like time is moving and changing and so forth. And all of a sudden time stands still. And here we are within this box, standing still with time. So at least I took advantage of this time to dig more into myself, because of course, it's evoke a lot of feeling of maybe fear, maybe not for us, but for our children, our grandchildren that are all out there and doing stuff and so forth. So it's like in the whole world, and see so many people dying, and all the graves in New York that they put in places that people never come to claim their bodies. This like affected me very much, and it's like those images are with me, and I know that now they are too hard to conceive even, but with time it will come through my art, because it's those images stuck with me. It's, you cannot ignore this. All the images that you see on TV about now in Brazil, fields of digging graves and so forth. But even with all this that I'm saying, I believe that people are social animals, and everybody will go out, exhibition, people will forget about it. Even though people think now it's hard, but I know that it will happen. I'm sure it will happen. Maybe not in the few next months, but maybe in half a year or whatever, and we will resume our life back. Hopefully, people will wash their hands more, so the flu season will be lighter, but we will be more aware of hygiene and other stuff, but we will keep living our life. And I believe that there is no replacement, digital versus tactile and smell, and also the energy. Like if you go to opening of a gallery and there are people there and there is exhibition, there's a lot of energy, of good energy that flow from the paintings to the people and around and so forth, and you cannot replace it. It's dead. The digital and this Zoom is dead. This is my feeling. It's like it's not something that you can touch, you can smell, you can feel, and I think that the tactile part of art is very important. So this is my take of the thing.
I think that
I agree with the flux of energy. I agree with the flux of energy. Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see if artists and their galleries work closer together going forward, because in the past 10 years, what I've seen is a lot of the galleries are very separate from the artist. They do their thing, the artist does their thing, and then hopefully they make sales and keep everybody living and moving forward. But I think that with this, it's very important that the artists and the galleries work very closely together, because, like for me, the traffic on my website has quadrupled since this happened. So a lot of people have seen my work that have never heard of me prior to this. And I think it's important that my galleries and my reps use that for not just for me, but also for them, because it all ties together. And I'm hoping that is something that comes from this.
Well, that's good for the artists who have galleries to work with. What about those who are not affiliated, how will the new situation affect artists who are looking for affiliation or looking to work on their own, and vice versa? Galleries who are we're going to lose a lot of galleries at the end of this, but we're also going to gain. Just like restaurants, etc. It's like after a forest fire, immediately new growth springs up, even as the old growth has been destroyed.
Yes.
How in this new forest will people be able to make it through the trees? That's a question that's been kind of nagging at me.
I think it's important that artists now really search on how to be better business people. They have to really learn how to take care of themselves, having a good website, and maybe during this isolation, I hope a lot of them learned how to create their website or how to make it better. I hope that they learned how to get on to, I have a lot of friends that have gone from working with galleries, like you said, to be doing a lot of public art. Working with the City of West Hollywood, I see artists that I don't know, but we get great artists through there, and they don't do anything but public art, and it's a completely different realm for me because I don't work public art at all. But I think the thing that's really important is that artists learn to take care of themselves going forward. They have to, like artists should, you know, they're a business. They should have a business entity. They should have a business checking account. They should have things that are separate from their personal. And to, you know, if they had that going into this, there were lots of things that, there was a lot of public assistance that artists could use. So I hope that artists learn that this is a time to set those things up or learn about them.
We have a pretty much a separate dialogue in the chat room.
Yeah.
This is very interesting to observe, because a lot of people are discussing, at least the discussion is going on Todd's remark about the electronic Zoom versus the real experience gallery wall. So I think maybe we can all expand a little bit on that, because that's something which is definitely going to change in the future, something which is not going to be going to be done like it was or used to be done. And my kind of sense is that we're never gonna get rid of galleries. Galleries are very important in the sense that they provide an experience with art, an experience with live connection, not just with the artwork, but also with the artist. But having said that, I also see the quantum leap that the art, or I should say business of art, is going to make through this tough times, because the distribution is completely going to be changed. The consumption is going to be also enhanced. So this new ways how the art reaches the masses is going to be very, very, very different from what it used to be. And so on the one hand, the physical presence, the galleries, the relationship, emotional relationship between the real original piece of art versus the virtual representation, whether it's electronic or any other one, it is still very important to have in place. Yet the distribution of and consumption of art is going to be very different.
You know, someone asked if galleries were less important now, and no, I think they're more important than ever now, because galleries bring very good collectors to an artist, and what they do is they introduce those collectors to who the artist is. And what I'm saying is artists need to create their presentation materials in a way that makes it very easy for their reps and galleries to show who they are as artists. Because every time you do something, I was taught, my resume is what my prices are based on. And I know that the art world's changed a lot in the last 10 years, and I get chastised because I don't really have an auction record, but that's not, it's not inside my I can't change that. I can make sure that I do good shows and work with good curators and do the things that keep my art relevant 10 years more down the road. And I think that that's kind of what I see as being really important right now.
Maybe I think that the gallery can become a center point as it was once. The connection point between artists and collectors, but in my opinion, gallery has they have two situations to follow. The economic one, which is unfortunately, and for all of us, is important. But in the last years, I have seen a sort of turning towards the economic, exclusively towards the economic problem of galleries and artists, which means that in a certain way, galleries who are earning money from a certain style of an artist may be flat down the research of the artist with this style, that style that they are able to sell. Whereas in my opinion, also galleries have to push artists to make a research, a continuous research, and never give up with the research, never flat down on the same kind of things that they are sellable and that they are able to sell easily. This is my opinion, because I am not, obviously I am a curator, not a gallerist, so which means that I always push people to make a research and go deeper in the research instead of making the same thing because it is sellable. But so maybe this is my opinion.
Peter, do you have anything to add?
Pardon?
Sorry?
Peter, do you have anything to add?
Well, we're getting a little bit off the topic. We're talking about the, I mean, I know time is money, but this is, it's slightly dilatory, but it's still an important topic. And it occurs to me that Todd emphasized that artists ought to have that Todd ought to have.
Stand by, please. What happened to your cat?
Hold on. My
Okay.
my phone is talking to me.
Are you sure?
Anyway.
Or is it just isolation?
Yes. Being isolated, as long as we're being isolated, you learn the identities of the ghosts in your place.
True.
At any rate, Todd, you were talking about galleries, artists developing their business sense, maintaining a sense of what they do, not thoroughly, certainly not even for the most part, but partly as a business, and maintaining a business structure by which their work can get out to the world. And I highly agree. I agree with you 100%. However, this should not get in the way of artists maintaining the sense of community and helping each other get out to the world. That I'm hoping, I can't trust that there will be, but I'm hoping that that the new normal will include more cooperative structures by which artists can present their work and present their work to a variety of audiences. You know, I'm not talking simply about co-op galleries. I'm talking about nonprofit spaces that have artists that are created by artists and structured by artists, and art professionals, all of which can be regarded as businesses, although they're nonprofit, or would be expected to be nonprofit. But I want to see the pecuniary sense that of the artist's mission blend with the community aspect of that mission, and that artists can do best for themselves by helping one another. I mean, that goes for life in general, but in particular with artists.
I completely agree. And if I need something, the first person I turn to is another artist. If I, you know, there are so many artists on here that I know it, but if I need something, I call Yuri, or I call Chase, or I call Andy, you know, I call Laddie. And those are the people that I depend on to help guide me, and I completely agree with you. Peter. I think that's the most important thing. I think it's more difficult in Los Angeles than in some places because of the vastness of the city and how spread out we are. And for me, I get that more when I travel in Europe and when I do residencies than ever in Los Angeles. So like I have a friend on here that I met a very long time ago at the American Academy in Rome, and those residencies and those nightly get-togethers over wine and dinner are so important with developing who you are as an artist, because it changes the way your thoughts process in your brain, which all subconsciously comes through in whatever the art is that you produce.
Right. Well, Gallery 825 is a model of what I think both you and I are talking about.
Yes.
As long given its long history now, several decades of activism and a well-structured presentation and selection process. There are too few such entities in Los Angeles. Todd, when you say you find too few of them here, I'm not sure whether you're talking about too few of those institutions already extant, or too few artists willing to or able to create them and maintain them. But
well, as a city, Peter, West Hollywood, I think it has to be done within communities. And as a city, West Hollywood is now trying to put together an artist talk, like a lecture series. And then we're also trying to get this community. We have a database of every artist in our city. And if things come up, the city sends out an email to them with arts updates, arts, whatever is going on. And then we're also now trying to develop a way. Martin Gantman used to do a get together, and he'd have curators show up and all these different artists. And those things don't happen much anymore, because that must have stopped at least 6 or 7 years ago. Or at least I don't see that happening as much as it used to.
Well, perhaps the new normal will bring it back again. But I think this is something that many people have to be prodded on an ongoing basis to create and maintain.
Yeah.
So there's an assignment for all of us when this thing is over.
I think I got a question, which is quite an interesting question, and I will read it aloud. But I also want to let anybody know that we have only about 3 minutes left. So please try to answer it kind of very, very quickly and eloquent. So the question comes from Donna Davis, and she asks, can we talk more about time and space, the new normal, and the internet impact? And are we rushing back too quickly to grasp onto the old normal? So basically the question is one sentence about time and space. We don't have that much time, but I hope we will be able to answer this question. Peter?
I don't think we're rushing back, as Donna writes, we're rushing back to quickly establish, foolishly grasp onto the old normal. I think there's an almost universal acknowledgement that things cannot be the same as they have been. The question is, how much of the old normal should we maintain? How much is it possible to maintain, retain, and how much opportunity does this give us for needed change, and how much change is actually needed? So we're not going to land in the same place we were before, but we are, the longer this goes on, the more responsible we are for aiming ourselves as where we're going to land.
Cynthia, would you like to add?
No, I think that we will adjust time and space in the future little by little, and I think that is something that we really will experiment by ourselves, living little by little and adjusting our life. For instance, I don't believe in social distances because it is quite impossible to. So the space is something that we will deal with in the future, but I don't think it is practical and is possible to realize a social life with the meter and the distance, and the same as time. Maybe time can be slightly changed in our behavior and our yes, in our behavior mostly, and in our practical life, but we will adjust in the future, experimenting by ourselves little by little. Todd?
Well, I think that for me, time is the most interesting part of this, because there's more time on our hands. You know, for me, I'm in the studio, and I'm always in the studio, but the difference is I'm not getting a million phone calls because I have to ship stuff and I have to go somewhere. I can just practice my art. And I think that the time aspects of this are still being decided. I'm not entirely sure what the new normal is, and I don't think we're rushing back to it at all, because I think we were desperately needing change in the art market and the art world, because the art market or the art world is so fractured. There's you know, there's a high blue chip end that doesn't really involve anybody except the people that are there, and then there's this museum group of artists that's there, and then there's this group in the middle of normal artists, and then there's a whole group of artists that are like Instagram artists. And I think part of what needs to come from, or I hope, not what needs to come, but what I hope to see is that those fractures disappear some. And what Peter said, I think, is the most important thing that happens because artists try and make the difference. Getting together and having these salons. I mean, the salons are really important to talk and discuss new ideas and new projects, and introducing new artists to curators like yourself, Cynthia. And I think that's so important in moving the art world forward. Sorry, I talk with my hands even on the computer.
Well, I guess I'll add to that also from a perspective of what is old normal and what is new normal. And I think that we will always have the fundamental parts of our experiences and livelihood always present, always something important to us. So communication, interaction, cross-pollination, gathering together, exchanging ideas, being in a close proximity to people like-minded or not so like-minded, but still being able to have all this social interaction. This is part of the old normal, and I think it will always be with us. In terms of the new normal, yes, new normal is going to be here with us, which we might, first of all, not understand yet, because it's going to take time. And here is your question, time. It takes time to understand what have happened. We cannot understand what is happening right now because we don't have the full picture. We don't understand all complexities. We don't have any consequences. We don't know what is coming out of this. We have no idea what is ahead of us, but that will become a part of new normal. So my sense is that we will take into the new normal something that we already have and value. We will never go back to the old normal, so to speak, but we don't know yet what is new normal. And the time and the space will be built up appropriately to that new normal, because artists are people who are very independent in building up their ideas and communicating those ideas. There is no way that you can restrict that activity as art making. And so for me, this is the biggest hope. So I think we still going, and I don't know, Cynthia, probably it's how you will decide whether or not we should call it, or we should go as long as Zoom will allow us to go. Please.
No, I just, before Zoom mute us and
that's what I'm afraid. I'm afraid that we are going to cut off.
Switch off. I want just to say goodbye to all our friends, our American friends, because in 2 days we are going back to Italy, and so we lose the physical contact if we have one, and but maybe. If everything will go smooth and easy, we will come back in September or the end of September for sure, because obviously we will miss you very, very much. So I want to say goodbye to everybody, and I thank you very much for your participation into the book. Remember that I want to tell something to all the artists. You can use and take advantage of this book and the publicity that you can give to this book to give a publicity to your work, because you can use the page of the book to send the email to all your mailing lists, asking your friends and collectors to buy the book, because it has the charity purpose, and at the same time you make publicity also to yourself and your art. So I thank you very much, everybody, for participating.
Thank you very much, everybody, and we conclude. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao, belli.
Ciao.
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 Bye, everyone.
Bye.